For over 4 years, I was going crazy, sending cold DMs, losing nights, no sleep, to end up getting no replies at all. Now, I wake up with 2 to 3 DMs a day, and some of my students wake up with like 6. These are 34 brutally honest tips that I would tell my younger self to make that bag sooner. So around the same time, I started sending nonchalant texts that were starting to give me slightly better results, but I still felt like I could do something better. That's when I had the idea of mixing it with audio messages. That allowed me to actually break the barrier of them only previewing the message when they see that, I just got a message, and they preview it and swipe away, and they actually have to click and listen to a bit of it. So I used that as a hack, and it ended up boosting my open messages rate by a ton. So this means you have more odds of being heard. Literally. I always thought that I could do everything, like try to solve a bit of everything. If I had to do like branding, and then I had to do coding, and then I had to do like web design and all that for a certain customer. And that didn't take me far before I started getting tired of doing it. Once I started like zoning in and focusing on one particular aspect, I polished it so much that doing that one thing encompassed doing like 7 other things and paid me a whole lot more just by doing it. And with that, I started being more confident while talking to customers on calls and even on DMs, and they felt through that I was being authentic. I'm usually not that organized. I have a hard time keeping my projects in order and organized. If I have a portfolio, I don't have my most recent work there. And for some time, I actually got away with it. I had my theme page where I had different illustrations where people could choose from there. But yeah, it wasn't the same when they found out that I wasn't the one that was like producing the stuff right there. Where I started seeing the pattern and seeing a shining light behind that was when I started doing free work for them in advance. That broke down the barriers of even needing a portfolio, because they just want to see what you do and how you do it and what's your perspective behind it. So if you provide them results and value, you can overlook having a portfolio. There was a time where I was clueless. Why weren't my DMs working? I was doing everything right by the book. The same script that I was using was actually working on other accounts and other profiles I was reaching to at the time as well. Until I noticed that it wasn't actually a problem of what I was saying or actually what I was doing in the actual DMs. What happened was I was actually falling into the void of a ton of messages being sent to the same person, and maybe the person hasn't seen it or wouldn't see it. Most messages lay dead for like 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month before they get answered. And yeah, man, it sometimes takes time. You can't be doing everything right. Just keep that in your mind. In the beginning, I didn't really like working for free. I was that type of guy that if I had to do something for someone, I had to be paid a certain amount always. But then I stopped receiving inbound leads and had to shift to outbound. It started to become obvious that I was getting mixed in with the bunch that was like low effort and stuff like that, and I didn't get responses. So I had to up my game. That's when I started cold pitching. That's when I knew that like giving off free value might boost you up to actually give you the credibility you need to actually be a part of the team or actually be of use to them. Cold pitching doesn't only polish your already existing skills, it makes you a lot more interesting to listen to. I'm not really a fan of AI, but I have dabbled with it in some time along the way. I tried Instantly, I've tried lead extractors, and a lot of other ones that don't come to mind right now. But what happens is that if you overuse AI in the beginning, you don't actually polish yourself enough to have the skills to know good from bad. You won't be able to distinguish if this block of text is good or this block of text is bad if you're not accompanied by AI. What AI serves to is to heighten your skills, to make your skills more accurate and more increased in value. It shouldn't substitute the skill all the way. You have to have the skill. Then AI will heighten it to make it better. Let's do the math together. 100 DMs times 7 days. 700. Okay. Now, 100 DMs times 30 days. I'm not looking to send 3,000 DMs every month, bro. if I'm manually sending DMs, I'm not looking to do that. Not anytime soon. In this video, I talk about like one time I sent 9 DMs and got 5 responses. Then it fell on to me that usually it's not about how many DMs you send. It's about zoning in on what works and then focusing on the numbers. In my early days, I always wanted to keep it everything virtual just so I could cut costs in like transportation and like fees and stuff like that. So I was strictly up for DMing international clients and people all around the world. But sometime after I started DMing locally, and one time in particular, I got a positive reply from a customer who offered to book a meeting 2 hours from where I was at. So I took the bait and I went to the meeting. And I tell you, when I arrived to the spot, I never had gotten into a place with so many armed guards in my life. When I was in the elevator, going upstairs and going onto the room to actually negotiate, you bet your ass I actually increased a zero there. When I got through and got to the room, I made my pitch. I showed him certain websites and I showed him the videos I made for him, the slideshows and everything. And I ended up closing the deal. I didn't ended up closing for a website, which I wanted to. I ended up making some ads for him to use in meta ads like Facebook and Instagram. Just to say that if you know the Meet IRL, it's crazy because you might be underselling them and you not even know it. I did this wrong and I bet you're doing this too. I fell in the loop of like using vulgar terms and overall came to figure out that most people don't like to be talked like that. They don't like to feel like old or they don't like to feel like super professional when they're not at work or something like that. So yeah, man, I started talking to them normally as human beings and it turns out they like that too. So you shouldn't be talking as a luxurious butler when you're just like a mechanic. I lost a good chunk of customers for overall being annoying, like sending messages hour after hour, day in, day out, every night and stuff like that, and overall coming out as desperate. Anytime I actually got a person to open my message and actually switch from sent to seen, I would instantly go into crazy mode and actually lose sleep and actually be glued to my phone and be looking at their stories and stuff like that for them to see that I'm online as well. What I was doing was I was disguising my intentions and sending them messages like, "Hey, hope you have a good day and hope you have a wonderful rest of the week" and stuff like that. When I didn't actually mean it, I actually just wanted them to advance with the conversation because they either left me holding or they showed me interest in wanting to have my services. After persisting, people usually ended up ghosting me. So that's when I learned to actually, instead of just sending them messages, asking about their day and disguising my intentions, I started sending them value. I started every time I outreach to them, I would send them like a new edit I did for them, or I would send them a new screenshot of a website I would show them, or a new thumbnail I did for them, or something along those lines. So if I had started sooner, instead of saying good morning, sending them value, I guarantee that more of those clients would have stuck with me a long time around. Receiving inbound clients was very addicting for me at that time because I was losing sleep as soon as I received the notification from Instagram because it have a separate ringtone. As soon as I got it, even if I was sleeping, I would just burst up and just to check if it was a DM from a customer or something like that so I could respond like right away. This ended up scaring away most of the clients because most times at this time we didn't even have chatbots and AI as we have it now, you know. But people actually ended up thinking that I was like a scammer or a begging guy or like a shady guy in general. And what I learned is sometimes you just gotta back off, like give it some time, and I guarantee that he'll get back to you. You don't need to respond right away. Give it time, and he'll still be there to listen to you. I usually had a hard time knowing that I was underselling my customers because most of them came through the same portal. It was Instagram, and they were inbound, and most of them were in a range of like 50, 100 to like 400, $300. But the way I was charging was about, it had a cap from like 50 to like 120 or $200. But soon enough, I started noticing something weird. I started noticing that even though people actually bought the $200 package, they ended up giving me tips afterwards or something like that. So that sparked something in my head. I was like, bro, I think these people actually come with more cash, but since I say it's 200, they only pay 200. So what I started doing was I started implementing a simple question beforehand. I started asking, what's your budget? When I made that question, usually I started making the actual package in turn of how much budget they have. And that exponentially increased the rates I ranked into my business. So ask their budget, and if it's higher or lower than your expectations, make three packages around that. At one phase, I was getting really frustrated because I found myself sending 100 to if not 1,000 DMs to different corporations, businesses, doctors, basically everyone with a high income tax bracket. Now, in hindsight, I noticed that a lot of the pages I was reaching out to were, if not company business pages, they were pages that didn't even engage for like years at this point, like being engaged like since 2018 type bad. But what I started to notice was I didn't actually vibe with a lot of the things or content that I had to produce for them. And it actually showed on the work. I didn't actually produce content that exude confidence and quality. They didn't end up liking it anyway. So when I started finding people that I actually vibe with, that actually say stuff that I like and actually look up to, it started showing in the work. I started making more delightful content, more heightened, engaging, and more well thought out content for these people, and they ended up liking it even more. When it comes from a genuine place, it will show on your work and the results will follow. There was one phase where I was literally just sending DMs to every profession that I felt like, yeah, man, I think this guy gets a bag. I even sent messages to like realtors, I sent messages to doctors, to surgeons, to basically everyone with a high income tax bracket. And I ended up reaching a deadline where I had to decide where, bro, do you continue sending DMs like this or do you figure out another way? Because I was falling flat. I was sending hundreds, if not thousands of DMs and none of them were getting open. And this was because I was sending the DMs to business pages and stuff like that, like the company page, instead of texting the actual person behind it. The turnaround I found with this was in every company, like usually, I go on to the following and usually they will be following the CEO, the owner. I have witnessed this taboo from some of my students, and I won't lie, I have fallen in this type of taboo myself. What's the taboo? Jumping in and talking about money right on the first couple of DMs. You shouldn't do that. Never. Reserve the DMs to like strict and gaining trust and stuff like that. Don't actually be talking money on there if they don't bring it up first. Actually talk about cash on calls since you can actually feel and test the waters on the budget that they have. The numbers look bigger on DMs than when you say it in real life. At least for me. 4 years ago, if you told me that I was doing free samples and sending over to clients, I would have told you you were crazy. What happens is I actually ended up trying to do this beforehand. That's why I'm so grateful. And I did it to an extent where I did it as hard labor, as forced labor in this case, where I didn't actually want to do it, but I did do it just so I had to show it to someone. And that showed on the work. It was low quality, it was badly edited, and it was badly done. And as an effect of that, the people didn't usually praise the work that came with it. Nowadays, I jump to the first opportunity that the person gives me of showing the actual thing I provided to them because now I know that the free sample that you send them has to be as value packed or as useful as you working in their company because that's going to be the main factor that's going to make you be a piece, a crucial piece in their puzzle and them considering you over the other person who DM them or uh, Twitter or on email, you know. Make sure that your stuff is useful. As if you can send it as a free sample or a cold pitch and he can use it right away, you're doing something right. Since my previous content was in English and Generally, my theme page also was in English. I was lucky enough to attract a lot of high paying customers from the US, Canada, and a lot of crazy places with crazy income capabilities. But sometime after, I started noticing that lower and lower amounts of people were reaching back because the market was starting to get saturated because literally everyone wants to target the USA. Then I started to see the odds climb up again because I started to distance myself a bit from the US and started focusing a bit more on other countries and a bit more locally as well. This increased my open messaging rate by a ton, and I won't even tell you the difference this makes until you try it yourself. If you speak another language, better. I tried to cold pitch in Portuguese, and it has done wonders for me in this whole process. Sometimes the second or third DM lands, not the first. I started something that I wasn't able to maintain for a long time, but I imagine that if I did, it would have provided me more success. I imagine. I started with actually sending video messages to my customers, introducing myself and actually pitching my service, and this actually increased the rates of my open message rates by a ton. But I didn't take long to stop with this because of the scenarios I found myself in. I wouldn't have the availability of sending videos constantly because I would be changing locations constantly, and not everywhere I would be ideal to film a video, you know. But don't let this stop you. This might work for you. Just try it and be sure to like leave a comment on if it works for you or not. When it comes to the first message, I didn't really know how I sounded until I really started getting messages sent my way. Most of the DMs I received were DMs that were solely focused on elevating themselves and showing how they would benefit me by me hiring them on my business that's already actually working and it's desirable for them. Get me? Which doesn't really sound right when you see it like that. So what I started doing was I started making use of the IUU rule. This basically means that for every time I say I have to supplement it with you two times. So indicating the customer. So an example of this would be like, "Hi Jeff, I'm here to help you increase your engagement on the channel that I saw on your YouTube." So, in any circumstance, instead of you focusing on saying I and talking in the first person, take a step back and talk more about the client. So, for every time you say I, just use you twice in every situation. I found myself in a time where I was overusing ChatGPT to resolve some of my questions and doubts, and I found myself actually thinking and feeling like a bot. Looking back, those weren't my wisest nor my most profitable times at best. AI can provide you like a shortcut, but it's infinitely better if you train the skill yourself and just use AI to like polish certain aspects of it. To put it in short terms, don't completely use the persuasive capabilities of a bot. Learn persuasion yourself and use the bot to polish your persuasion skills. My cold pitches usually ended up in deaf ears because I didn't really feel the work I was doing, man. The people I was outreaching to were actually polite enough to be like, yeah, man, like, yeah, send it over. And they were talking about boring stuff about like the mother exercising skills for pregnant women and stuff like stuff that's not very entertaining for me to see. It wasn't as engaging, and I wasn't very happy doing the work that was being done at the time until I started like looking for pages that I actually liked and actually was inclined to listening to and was genuinely curious to know about the channels and the people and stuff like that. I ended up producing more quality work. It usually comes down to being able to be in love with the content you're seeing and you are producing, and I guarantee that it will show in the final product that you produce. Produce quality and the results will follow. My first messages used to be me just introducing myself, telling that I had a channel and that I had an Instagram page and stuff like that, and just being too long and too specific on details that they don't even really care, just to find out that they weren't even taking the time to even read it. One specific day when I was already very tired of sending like DMs and I was bored and it was late at night, and I started really just nonchalantly sending DMs to every creator that I saw and that I felt like I could work with them. I was like spraying, but you know, man, I was spraying, but nonchalant. And then I went to bed, and to my surprise, the next morning, I got some replies, like more than I expected. And I had sent more DMs previous to these ones, but I got more replies just from like the day before from all the other DMs that I had gotten or that I had sent along the days. So that's how crazy that was. Cut to the chase. People usually won't have time to read your offer if you dwindle around a lot in your intro. I usually force myself to actually find people solely on Instagram because I felt like Instagram was cool and it was easier for me and it has the best potential for finding clients. But along the lines and along the time, I really found myself finding prospects on other social media, not only on Instagram. So it was counterintuitive thinking that only Instagram would be the gateway to finding clients. What I started doing was I had Instagram, yes, but I started branching out to different social media and email, and I generally started getting responses from other places where people are more active and have lower chances of actually landing on deaf ears. Now, for example, I have X, and that only increases my odds of closing deals. I really didn't like having to follow up. Firstly, because I wasn't as organized, and mainly because it was really hard to find the actual pages I had to follow up to. Sometimes I would think I followed up with everyone I had to, and then a couple of days later, I'd noticed that there was one page that actually saw and I didn't follow up in time or stuff along those lines. It started becoming less daunting when I started becoming a bit more organized, and I didn't even do much. What I started doing was I started using the flag function to actually highlight some of the uh, interesting conversations I needed to keep track of, and I actually started using a table that I've talked about in this video that actually kept certain details that helped me link to their pages and stuff along those lines. The messier the inbox, the harder it will be to follow up. I got overwhelmed in the first instances because I really felt like to get in touch with people, I had to contact them in every social media, like in emails, the WhatsApp, in Facebook, in Instagram, in TikTok, like everyone, every social media. I came around to find out that that's not the case at all. If you play the pieces right and if you scan the information the right way, it won't even take that much for you to do that. You using one single platform will be the result for countless DMs that you'll be able to achieve and countless profiles that you'll be able to reach. If you do this right, contacting prospects will start to become effortless. For the longest, I've been receiving customers that range from high paying customers to low paying customers. High paying customers being upwards to like 400, 300, $500. Low paying customers being down to about like five, four, $3 paying customers. That's crazy because here I use PayPal, and if they send me $3, I think I would only get like $1.99 or something like that. But in the latter situations, I try to decline politely. There are some situations where the people put in the effort to actually get you up early and like get you ready to start the project and stuff like that. But when you talk budgets, after 1 week of negotiation and stuff like that and talking about the project, and when you talk about the budget, you say your budget and they're like, ah, nah, man, it's too much. Like, what? Okay, how much you finna pay? This is like $7. And sometimes you just have to take the L, bro. Just take the L. You lost your time, just shift it to another direction. One of the reasons I stopped getting inbound customers was because I stopped posting on Trademark Engineer, my theme page. What happens is when I posted constantly on Trademark Engineer, people saw that I was a person who is consistently online and that's reliable, that if they started a business venture with me, I wouldn't just stop halfway and disappear for good. And so it prompted them to actually believe in me and actually end up sending a message like, yo, bro, let's work. Not posting does the complete opposite of that. They're less likely to send a message if they see that your last post was in 2019. Posting gives your clients the actual extra push to actually follow up and reach out to you. So be doing that. I was once in the brink of closing one of my biggest deals at the time for $410. $10 for being for fees because of PayPal, so I could get 400. And it was all planned out and it was all like already established, and it came down to a point where he asked me to send him the payment link, so I did. But then he went silent for a while, and for the first day when he went silent, I was like, okay, let me just lay back and relax. And one day became 2 days. On the second day I was like, yo, then I was like, "Oh, good. Is it everything up? Like, what's up? Can we advance?" Like, yo, that was for the next 2 days. That was like me just texting them one day after another. And on the fourth day, I was sleeping and I actually ended up hearing the notification for Instagram. And I was like, whoa. I woke up and I checked the page. It was the person. She sent the message. And when I opened it, I was all giggly and laughing and all those things. But when I started reading the message, and it was her cussing me out because I was usually sending texts to them in the morning, like in the early hours, like 3 a.m., 2 a.m. And she was like, leave me the hell alone. Long story short, yeah, I was contacting her always in like early in the morning, and it's starting to get annoying to some extent, and I lost the deal. Yeah, that's how it ended. So the lesson on this one is now I actually have alarms for the actual places I'm contacting, just so I contact them in great hours, good hours, to like not get cussed out. And yeah, sorry, Lindsay. One thing that usually set me back a whole lot in the beginning was I usually didn't find myself actually sending the DMs to actual people. I found myself actually sending to the business pages of certain businesses, you know? And if you think like me, you would see it and you would be like, oh, they can accept DMs. That will be the fast response. But that is wrong. What I started doing was I started noticing that if I send to a business, it will be received as a business inquiry or something like that. So it will have to pass to a whole bunch of people and it will have to be inspected and stuff like that. So it will lower your odds of actually reaching someone of interest that could make a decision that would change you. So jump that whole process and start contacting the person directly. You can usually find them on the following tab. When you go there, you can usually find someone of interest there, and usually it's easy for you to advance from there. There was a time where as soon as I sent a DM to a customer, I was hopping out to another chat and sending another DM to another customer until I was closing around like 200 customers in 3 days or 4 days. In the end of the week, where I stopped and actually looked at the DMs and to see the responses I got and stuff like that, a few, if not like 20, 10, 5 people were actually responding, and that was really, really bad. The secret is the long run. If you're up there engaging with them in comments, in liking their posts, or if you're following in different social medias and stuff like that, that will inevitably increase your odds of being in a good list for them. So don't spray and pray. You can pray, but you can't spray. Whilst editing videos for my clients and prospects, I actually fell into fits of boredom because I didn't vibe with the content that they were putting out and the stuff they talked about and in the manner they talked about. When I started deviating from that and actually being able to focus on stuff I liked and people I liked, I started taking certain traces of like real estate and taking certain traces of business and taking certain traces of marketing and taking all that and experiencing my own thing and implementing it my own way. That's why I feel like you can learn the pattern of what works in the process and know what niches work better in which situations. In the first days, I was actually terrified of being labeled as a low tier designer or something like that. Even though I didn't want to be portrayed as that. My jobs weren't actual good paying jobs if it wasn't below $100. And I was fast to learn that this isn't always the solution. Being charging low doesn't actually mean that you're bad at your job. It just means that you're doing it for a low cost. I found videos of people that are licensed in like designing stuff, animation and stuff like that, going undercover into Fiverr and charging like $20 to pop out logos for content certainly shifts the tables. So charging low is just the process. Start charging low and start charging more gradually along the way. There was a time where I was getting overloaded with information and getting a lot of content out of a lot of places. So that means a lot of strategies and a lot of errors at the same time. Until one day I randomly stumbled on into a video of one guy on YouTube talking about like getting customers on Instagram and how he does it and his approach to doing it. And I took notes on that, and I won't lie when I tell you that has been the single most beneficial video that I watched. I can't remember the name at the moment. I don't really remember the name nor the face of the guy. But I can tell you that once I started implementing only that video, the results came piling in. Pick one source and make it work for yourself. I went through a phase where it didn't matter how many DMs and how many approaches and how many techniques I was using. None of them were working. This all changed when I simply implemented my YouTube link on my bio on Instagram. This meant that when I usually DM'd people and outreached to people, they fell into my profile, and when they came into my profile, they clicked on my YouTube link and saw that I was active and I won't disappear anytime soon. The more you spread content and spread value, the more odds that people will take a bit of time to actually listen to you. The first link in my description is for my Discord. There you can find my email where you can send your screenshots of your conversations where I can give you my opinions and suggestions so you can do better soon.